January 1913. A man pulls off his boot, and the entire sole of his foot peels away with it, raw nerve endings. He tapes the loose skin back on and keeps walking. But here's what makes this insane. He's already 100 miles from the nearest human. His first teammate, swallowed by a crevasse so deep they never found his body. His second teammate went mad, bit off his own fingers, and died screaming in a torn tent. Now Mawson is alone. His hair is falling out in clumps. His skin is sloughing off in sheets. His nose is disintegrating. And the food keeping him alive? It's slowly poisoning him from the inside, and he has no idea. By every law of biology, Douglas Mawson should be dead 10 times over, but he's not. He's still crawling across Antarctica, dragging a sled he sawed in half, hallucinating his dead friends, racing a clock he can't see. And when he finally reaches safety, the rescue ship is pulling away from shore without him. What invisible poison was destroying his body? And how did a dead man walk out of Antarctica? November 10th, 1912. Summer has returned to Antarctica's frozen coast. A team of 3 explorers sets off from Commonwealth Bay with the confidence of men who have prepared for everything. Douglas Mawson, 30 years old, leads the party. He's a seasoned geologist who has already survived 1 Antarctic expedition under Ernest Shackleton. With him are Lieutenant Belgrave Ninnis, a 25-year-old British Army officer and expert dog handler, and Xavier Mertz, a 28-year-old Swiss champion skier whose quick wit keeps morale high even in whiteout conditions. Their mission is pushed deeper into the Antarctic interior than any human has ever traveled. They have 3 sledges, 16 husky dogs, nearly 1,720 pounds of food and gear distributed across the convoy. Each man carries only a handful of personal items. Ninnis, a book of Thackeray, Mertz, a Sherlock Holmes collection, Mawson, a leather diary, and a photograph of his fiancée Paquita. They believe they're prepared for anything. At first, they appear to be right. The Antarctic summer sun barely dips below the horizon, granting endless daylight. They ski and sled across the ice at impressive speed. By mid-December, the 3 men have pushed over 300 miles from camp, reaching nearly 500 kilometers into East Antarctica, farther than anyone in history. Mawson names the glaciers after his companions, the Mertz Glacier and the Ninnis Glacier. But Antarctica is whispering warnings. For weeks, they've been crossing terrain laced with hidden crevasses, deep fissures disguised by thin snow bridges. Time and again, Ninnis's sledge nearly plunges through a concealed crack, saved only by the dog's agility. One night, they pitch camp on a glacier and wake to deep, booming sounds reverberating beneath their tent. Mertz recognizes the noise. The snow arches beneath them are collapsing. The ice is shifting like an unstable building. Strange omens accumulate. A petrel, an Antarctic seabird that shouldn't exist hundreds of miles inland, smashes headlong into Ninnis's sledge, dying on impact. They catch one of their huskies eating her own newborn puppies in the snow. Mawson battles a persistent infection, splitting his lip. Ninnis goes snowblind for days, and Mawson has to lance a throbbing abscess on his finger with a pocket knife. No anesthetic. These are small troubles, handled with silent resolve. But each close call plants a seed of dread. By December 13th, their confidence has curdled into exhaustion. They make camp amid howling katabatic winds. Mawson decides to lighten the load by abandoning one sledge. That night, the ground thunders with deep cracks. Just one more day, he tells them. A bit farther, then we turn for home. They drift into fitful sleep, unaware this will be their last night as a trio. The next morning, luck doesn't just run out. It vanishes into a black hole in the ice, and with it goes everything they need to survive. What happens when the safest position in a convoy becomes the deadliest? And what crucial mistake in how they packed their supplies will haunt Mawson for the rest of his life? December 14th, 1912. A deceptive calm after a night of ominous rumbling. The men pack up camp and prepare to head back. They've achieved a deep push into uncharted territory. Now the priority is returning alive. The three hitch up their dogs and set off in single file across the glacier. Mertz skis out front, singing a bawdy Swiss tune. Mawson rides the second sledge. Ninnis follows at the rear with a third sledge, handling the strongest dog team and carrying the bulk of their supplies. The weather is mercifully mild at -11 degrees Celsius, practically balmy for Antarctica. For the first time in weeks, nothing seems to be going wrong. The men even joke that their luck has finally turned. Shortly after noon, Mawson halts to take a solar reading with his sextant. Up ahead, Mertz plants a ski pole in the air, the signal for a crevasse beneath. Mawson has crossed countless crevasses by now. This one seems minor. His sled glides safely over the hidden crack. He shouts back to Ninnis, "Follow directly in my tracks." In a last backward glance, he sees Ninnis adjust his course to cross perpendicular to the danger, exactly as trained. Satisfied, Mawson returns to his navigation. Seconds later, the singing stops. Mawson looks up. Mertz stands frozen, staring behind them with wide eyes. The space where Ninnis should be is empty. No third sledge and no dogs, nothing but an unbroken white plain. They rush back along their tracks. The distance is only a quarter mile, but with each step their dread compounds. Then they see it, an enormous black gash in the snow where the surface has collapsed. At the edge, splinters of wood and a smear of purple dog fur. Mawson drops to his belly and crawls forward, peering into the abyss. The crevasse plunges into bottomless darkness. About 150 feet down, where the walls narrow to a tiny shelf, he can make out two huskies, one motionless, the other shattered and whimpering. A few pieces of wood and torn canvas are scattered nearby. Of Lieutenant Ninnis, there is no sign. Mawson bellows into the void. "Ninnis!" The only reply is the soft moan of the dying dog and the hollow echo of his friend's name bouncing off ice walls. Mertz joins in, shouting in French and German. For 3 hours, the two men take turns lying at the lip of the crevasse, calling down, listening for any response. But nothing comes. Eventually, even the mangled husky below falls silent. A cold draft wafts up from the chasm, carrying the smell of death. Mawson crawls along the edge, searching for answers. He finds Ninnis's footprints. Unlike Mertz and Mawson, who had skied or ridden their sledges, Ninnis had been running alongside his sled on foot, his full weight concentrated on a small patch of snow, enough to punch through a hidden weak spot that held everything else. One misstep, and the ice had swallowed him whole. Shock gives way to brutal mathematics. When they divided the sledges, Mawson had reasoned that his lead sled faced the highest risk of accidents, so he placed most of their supplies on Ninnis's rear sledge, a logical decision that now becomes a death sentence. Gone with Ninnis, the tent, the bulk of their food, spare clothing, the toolkit, the medicine box and the dog food, almost everything. All that remains on Mawson and Mertz's single sled are 2 sleeping bags, a small stove, and food for perhaps 1 week of half rations. They are over 300 miles from base camp. The math is simple and brutal. 10 days of food for a journey that will take a month. They have no shelter and no margin for error. Mawson refuses to surrender. They still have 6 dogs. If they must, they'll eat them. Mertz stares at the loyal animals they've raised for months, then nods slowly. There is no other way. They salvage what little they can, then force themselves into motion. That night, they stagger 5 miles from the crevasse and make camp. With no tent, they improvise a shelter from tattered canvas draped over skis and broken sledge runners. The 2 men crawl inside, sleeping bags laid directly on snow. It's so cramped that only one man can sit up at a time. Neither speaks much. Perhaps neither wants to voice what both already know. They're eating their dogs to survive, but they don't know that what they're eating is slowly killing them. What invisible poison lurks inside their only food source? And how long before it destroys what's left of their minds? The following days blur together. Fueled by adrenaline, Mawson and Mertz cover an impressive distance at first, but soon the cost catches up. The dogs begin collapsing, starving on the same brutal workload. When the weakest husky, George, can no longer stand, Mawson takes out his pocket knife and rifle. Half the stringy meat feeds the surviving dogs. The other half fries on an aluminum cooker lid. No proper pan and no utensils. Those fell into the crevasse. They gnaw charred strips of dog flesh like wild animals. Mawson notes in his diary that, on the whole, it was voted good. A grim joke to make the macabre supper feel almost normal. They press on, navigating by sun and memory. When another dog collapses, they haul it onto the sled until camp, then shoot it, butcher it, and boil the bones into greasy soup. Each kill prolongs their lives at the expense of those trusting eyes. But something invisible is destroying them from inside. The livers of huskies contain toxic concentrations of vitamin A, far beyond what a human body can process. A few ounces can overdose a person, triggering hypervitaminosis A. The symptoms creep in subtly: skin drying and cracking, hair falling out, overwhelming fatigue and nausea. In severe cases, mental breakdown and hallucinations. Mawson and Mertz, choking down every part of their dogs, including the vitamin-rich livers because food is food, have unwittingly entered a biological trap. They think they're staving off starvation. But with each meal, they're dosing themselves with slow-acting poison. By early January 1913, Mertz's condition deteriorates at alarming speed. The Swiss athlete who once outskied everyone is now a gaunt ghost being dragged by Mawson. He grows weak and apathetic, unable to rise without help. His skin peels off in sheets. Even his personality is changing. On January 2nd, too weak to stand, Mertz bites off the tip of one of his frost-bitten fingers in front of Mawson, seemingly unfazed. His mind is fraying. Mawson isn't faring much better. Snow blindness stabs his eyes with every blink. His hips and groin are raw with chafing wounds. His hair falls out in clumps, but his willpower drives him forward. He tries to rally Mertz with small goals. 5 more miles today. By January 5th, Mertz can no longer walk more than a few yards. He begs Mawson to stop and rest for a day. Mawson knows every lost day lowers their chance of survival, but he cannot push a dying man harder. They huddle in the tent for 24 hours. It's not enough. The next morning, Mertz collapses again, shaking uncontrollably. It starts with blank stares and mumbled words. Soon, Mertz is babbling nonsensically. On January 7th, Mawson finds that Mertz has soiled himself in the night. The proud athlete is delirious, his body failing at every level. Mawson spends hours cleaning his companion in sub-zero cold. That evening, Mertz lunges from his sleeping bag and thrashes wildly, shouting in German and French at unseen specters. He snaps a tent pole in his frenzy. Mawson pins him down. "Halt, Xavier! Halt!" The convulsions ease. Mawson guides him back into the sleeping bag and sits in the dark tent, holding his hand. The only sounds are the wind and Mertz's ragged breathing. Sometime in the early hours of January 8, 1913, that breathing stops. When pale light creeps into the torn tent, Mawson discovers Xavier Mertz is dead. The energetic skier with the big smile is now a gaunt corpse. Mawson is utterly alone, over 100 miles from the nearest human being with food for only a few days. He kneels next to his friend's body in the middle of a blank white hell. No help is coming. He could curl up beside Mertz and let sleep take him. For a long moment he considers it. Then Douglas Mawson refuses. He thinks of Paquita. He thinks of Ninnis and Mertz, and how someone needs to tell their story. He whispers a promise into the icy air. "I will survive for you." He builds a crude cross from skis and sledge wood, drags Mertz's body from the tent, and constructs a tomb of snow blocks. He says a few words to the wind. Tears freeze on his cheeks. Then he turns to the horizon. Roughly 100 miles of nightmare lie between him and base camp. If Douglas Mawson wants to live, he must walk out of this graveyard himself. But his body is disintegrating faster than he's traveling. How does a man whose feet are falling off cover 100 miles of ice? And what happens when the ground itself opens up to swallow him whole? January 1913. Douglas Mawson marches through Antarctica alone. Every step is torture. The soles of his feet are falling off. His muscles have atrophied. He's hauling a sled he sawed in half to reduce weight. No GPS, radio, or companion. Just one skeletal man and a battered sled in an endless expanse of white. Each night, he ties himself to the sled with a rope. If he falls into a crevasse, the sled might jam against the walls. He writes detailed journal entries documenting every symptom, turning himself into a scientific experiment in survival. His body deteriorates in ways that should not be survivable. Skin sloughs off in sheets. Fingertips fester. The mucous membranes of his nose disintegrate. His salivary glands stop working. When he tries to spit, his mouth is too dry. His nose and lips have split into bleeding cracks, and the thickened skin of his feet has separated entirely from the flesh beneath. Around January 17th, his greatest fear materializes. He has been probing the snow ahead with his ski pole, watching the ground obsessively. That day, crossing seemingly solid snow, the ground vanishes. Mawson plunges into a crevasse. Free fall. Then, a violent jerk. The rope snaps taut. The sled has jammed against the walls, arresting his fall after 14 feet. Mawson dangles in midair inside a pitch-black ice shaft. Far below his kicking legs, nothing but blackness. His fingers scramble against slick ice walls, finding only powder. Overhead, the sled creaks, sliding inch by inch. In that suspended silence, a thought drifts through his mind. So this is the end. He says it aloud. All his suffering, only to end like ninnies. Perhaps it would be a relief. Just let go. Then another thought sparks. There's chocolate on the sled, and a surge of defiance ignites. No, not yet. With a primal growl, he forces his bleeding fingers onto the rope and starts climbing. Hand over hand, the rope slicing his frost-bitten fingertips to bone. A few feet up, his foot slips, and he plummets back, slamming into the ice wall. The sled shifts. He tries again, muscles screaming. He slips, catches himself, inch by inch, will versus gravity. Finally, with one last burst, he claws the lip, drags his torso onto the snow like a half-dead seal. He lies at the crevasse edge for an hour, gasping. His heart rattles. He's alive. Again. That night, he fashions a rope ladder 15 feet long, attaching one end to the sled, the other to his harness. The next day, when he breaks through another crevasse, the rope ladder catches on the edges and helps him scramble out. Antarctica keeps trying to pull him under. He keeps wriggling free. By late January, Mawson has been alone for over 2 weeks, moving only 4 or 5 miles per day. He's nearly bald, clumps of hair littering his balaclava. Blizzards pin him down for days. Then finally, a break. On a clear morning, Mawson crests a rise and sees something other than endless snow. The coastline of Commonwealth Bay shimmers in the distance, 40 miles from home, and between him and the main hut lies a supply depot nicknamed Aladdin's Cave. On January 29th, his goggles catch something unnatural, a small cairn of snow blocks, a cache left by teammates who had gone searching. Inside, a tin with a note and food. He wolfs down biscuits and chocolate, tears freezing on his cheeks, real food after weeks of rotten dog meat. 2 days later, on February 1st, Mawson reaches Aladdin's Cave. Inside the snow cavern, supplies, and astonishing treasures. 3 oranges, a can of pineapple. Imagine not seeing color for months, not tasting anything but rotting dog meat and boiled bones, then holding a bright orange sphere in your skeletal hand. Mawson breaks down sobbing at the sight of something that isn't white. He peels an orange slowly, letting the citrus scent fill his nostrils, the sweet juice running down his chin. For the first time in weeks, hope feels real. But fate isn't done. He still needs to travel the final few miles. A massive blizzard sweeps in, winds over 100 miles per hour. Mawson is trapped from February 2nd to 7th. 5 days. Practically within shouting distance of safety, but unable to move. He huddles in the cave, rationing his supplies, listening to the wind scream, wondering if the universe is playing a cosmic joke. The storm lifts on February 8th. Mawson summons his last strength. Step, drag, breathe. By late afternoon, he crests the final ridge overlooking Commonwealth Bay. The wooden hut. Home base. Half a mile ahead. Then something catches his eye over the gray sea. On the horizon, a tiny speck of black smoke. Moving. Realization crashes down. It's a ship. The Aurora. The relief vessel. Steaming away from the coast without him. Mawson watches in silence as the Aurora shrinks to a black dot and melts into the Southern Ocean. He is hours late. If the blizzard hadn't pinned him down, he would have made it. Instead, he's greeted by the fading echo of the ship's horn on the wind. After surviving everything Antarctica threw at him, Douglas Mawson missed his rescue by mere hours. But he's still standing. And there are 6 men waiting in that hut who have no idea what's about to walk through their door. Mawson drags himself the last yards to the hut. A small shore party of 6 men had stayed behind just in case. When this haggard creature approaches, they stare, not recognizing him. He is horribly emaciated, skin weathered, hair half missing. Who goes there? The figure lifts his frost-cracked face. "I am Mawson." Gasps. Cheers. They rush to help him into the hut. After 90 days in the most desolate wilderness on Earth, Mawson finally feels the warmth of human hands. With the Aurora gone, Mawson must remain in Antarctica until the ship returns the following season. An almost absurd coda, he survives the unsurvivable, only to spend an extra winter on the continent that tried to kill him. But Mawson almost laughs. What's one more winter? He'll take life under any conditions. As his tattered clothes are cut away and warm broth pressed into his hands, he recounts the tale. Ninnis's fall, Mertz's death, the glacier, the dogs. His colleagues listen in awe and horror. When the Aurora returned in December 1913, Mawson was still gaunt but standing tall. He received a hero's welcome in Australia and later a knighthood, yet he remained modest. He documented his experiences in the home of the blizzard, recounting the moment he saw the ship had left. A speck on the northwest horizon caught my eye, and my hopes went down. Despite that crushing disappointment, he ended his account with acceptance. Well, what matter? The long journey was at an end. A terrible chapter of my life was finished. Polar historians rank Mawson's survival march among the greatest feats of individual endurance in exploration history. But his story is distinct. It had no villains, no dramatic rescue. The antagonist was raw environment and human frailty. He fought nature in its purest form: starvation, freezing cold, gravitational physics, and even the toxic chemistry of his only food source. By any rational calculation, he should have died when Ninnis fell, when rations ran out, when the poison ravaged his body, when Mertz went mad, when his feet disintegrated, when he plunged into the crevasse. Each time, something intervened. Each time, Douglas Mawson refused to give up. The man who shouldn't have survived did survive. He led further expeditions and lived to 76, passing away peacefully in 1958, worlds apart from that screaming void of Antarctica. His ordeal reminds us that truth is sometimes more harrowing than fiction. If you saw a film character endure what Mawson did, you might roll your eyes. Yet it happened exactly as described, backed by diary entries and physical evidence. Perhaps the most haunting aspect is how ordinary the start was. 3 confident explorers setting off, unaware they were dancing on a knife edge. Disaster came not with fanfare but in a mundane instant, a misstep by Ninnis, then unspooled slowly, agonizingly. There was no grand foe to outwit, no ship coming at the last second. The ship left. There was only one man versus entropy, and that man won. Barely. Not through luck alone, but through a relentless refusal to surrender when surrender was the logical choice. Douglas Mawson proved that the boundaries of human endurance extend far wider than we assume. He wasn't a Superman. He was driven, intelligent, and incredibly determined. He made smart decisions, like the rope ladder and sawing his sled in half, and clung to purpose, living for Paquita and his fallen companions, to pull himself through.